You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame with Robert Phoenix.
Well, good morning, everybody. Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. What's happening now, boys and girls? It's a sunny 67 degrees here, 8:16, from the center of Goat City. Another day in the Matrix. What's going on out there? I hope everybody had a restful sleep last night. I did. I actually had a restful sleep. My sleeping patterns and habits have changed dramatically since I have moved to the country and get me some good country rest. I highly recommend it. Get out of the cities. Have you seen cities lately? I mean, not all cities, mind you, but man, San Francisco is turning into an absolute pile of human waste. So it's really sad. Very, very sad. I remember living in San Francisco back in the 80s. I loved it. It was a good time to be in San Francisco. It was probably the last good time to be in San Francisco. That was when California cuisine was just starting to explode. There were clubs that people actually attended. One of the main musical genres was something called dance rock. Remember dance rock? Tones on Tails, stuff like that. The Cure, I think, was probably a dance rock band. In excess, it was this fusion of like rock and funk and a little bit of electronica, kind of starting to sneak in. You know, the sampler was just starting to come online. Couldn't do a whole lot with it, but you could still sample tracks and add in pieces of voices or sound effects, or you could double back with a couple of different instruments, insert those things. And then, of course, there were DJ remixes. It was, at that time, it was kind of the birth of the modern DJ as well, right around, 86, 87. You had people like John Jellybean Benitez, and they were taking these dance rock tracks and starting to put extended versions on them. It was a fun time. Really, really fun time. And San Francisco was wasn't always clean. I mean, there was, every city has its kind of designated zone for sin, vice, corruption, human tragedy. And for San Francisco, there was, of course, the Tenderloin. And a walk through the Tenderloin was generally going to be a walk through every now and then, kind of a piss-filled stench, the stench of urine every now and then. You walk through that cloud, and that was it. But now it's proliferated, and it's all through the city. I was reading a story the other night, because I still go back and look at some of the news from the Bay Area, and I read the SF Gate, which is the news portal for the Chronicle, San Francisco Chronicle, the newspaper I grew up reading as a kid. And I read this story about a fight that had broken out at the BART station near the cable car turnaround right off of Market Street. And two young guys were getting into a fight. And some older guy stepped in to try to break it up. And one of the younger guys hit him on the head with a handlebar or something. He kind of beat him up, and he went to the hospital, and he's actually in critical condition. Do yourself a favor. Don't get involved in other people's fights. Just don't. Let them sort it out. You know, maybe that's a macro message that as a country we should be thinking about, but I'm telling you, that ship has sailed. We are so deep. We are up to our third eye in being involved in foreign engagements. This is the time that General George Washington prophesied. His great prophecy. We're in that time now. Man. Anyway, stay out of fights. Just don't get involved. Don't get involved. It's better for your health. Unless, of course, what you're witnessing is something that is much more egregious than two probably methed up and raging assholes going at it. Let's say it's a woman that's being assaulted or a child, then you got to do something. You guys got to do something. You got to figure it out and stop the carnage and stop the mayhem. But I highly recommend spend a little time in the country. It's good for the spirit. The air is pretty good out here. We had a nice storm last night. Nice electrical storm. It's great. Love the storms in Texas. When I first got here and started to see the dramatic weather, it was like, wow, this is really cool. We didn't get lightning very much in California. It was always exciting. Ooh, lightning. Here, it's a fairly common occurrence, and I never get tired of it. I love the feeling of the storm as it's starting to kind of gather. You know, you like that feeling? Well, you're kind of in it. You are kind of in the storm that's beginning to gather. Don't be afraid of it, though. Don't be afraid of it. There's a lot of energy that's released during these storms. And then the aftermath is always quite nice as well. Like today, this morning. Do not be afraid of the storm. Hey, so we're going to go over a couple different things today. And so I circle back and follow up on a few things we've been talking about over the past couple days and keep some of these topics alive because it seems like it's a good thing to do to keep an ongoing dialogue. I talked about Jordan Peterson yesterday, and some people I had a couple different things that came in my direction from two people. One person was asking me, what was really going on there? What was Jordan Peterson really doing when he was amending or working on the document for the United Nations? And my take on it is that what he was doing was he was participating in defining the narrative for Agenda 2030 for the United Nations and their sustainability and sustainable living program, which in a lot of ways is kind of an extension of the social Marxist doctrine that Jordan Peterson has taken on. Because if you think about it, I mean, that's the ultimate extension, right? You, in the future, in Agenda 2030 land, you'll be living in a luxurious 500 by 500 box, somewhere inside of a completely controlled AI city, also known as a smart city, where your appliances will be turned off at certain times, where you'll be given certain amounts of entertainment time, all the wonderful amenities that will be provided to you by your friends of the Green States. And you'll also get a universal living wage, more than likely. And in order to have that universal living wage, you'll have to agree to certain pieces. One of the things you'll have to agree to is whatever their schedule is for vaccines. I'm going to talk a little bit about vaccines today. John Rappaport has some breaking news. I'm not going to have John Rappaport on, but I'd like to. I got a text from Washington Gale over on Facebook. She told me that Rappaport's 79 years old. Wow. If that's true, John is operating at a high level at 79. Seems like C60 is all the rage. People are into C60, 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 C60. I'd like to know if anybody has experienced anything different from taking C60. If you're taking C60, I want to know what you're experiencing. You can either hit me up in the chat room or connect me on Facebook or send me an email. By the way, I'll give out my email address. It's rpm1122@zoho.com. If you ever want to connect with me personally, that's a good way to do it. That's rpm1122@zoho.com. So John's looking pretty good. Anyway, I'm going to get into some of his vaccine stuff. We can check that out. But that's part of the deal. If you're going to hang out in the Emerald City, which is what your future essentially is. No, but don't worry about that part, though. Just keep drinking the Kool-Aid, the QOOL-aid. You'll be just fine. Just fine. Trust in POTUS. You know what bugs me? You know what's starting to bug me now? It's like Donald Trump's internet pimps are starting to bug me. Like, I follow this guy, Jack Posobiec, who was kind of interesting in the run-up to the election because he had some intel. He knew people, right? He does. The guy's like naval intelligence, okay? He's even said that. But now they post all these photos, like, there's this older black woman who was like hugging Trump and grabbing his hand. I don't know if that's fucking real or not. I don't know. But even if it is real, what's that all about? Even if it is real, it's kind of like whorish in some ways. It's like, see, look at this old black grandma. She just loves him some Trump. You'll never see this in the mainstream media. It's like it's almost exploitative. And I get it. It's like people are fighting to get their narrative across. There's this ocean of white noise and people are just trying to fire these sonic cannons to get their message across. But it almost feels exploitative. Please. It's like you're preaching to the choir. Do something different. Be creative. Get an edge, man. These company toads. They just get so locked in on their little Twitter feed. And yeah. Anyway. Some of the stuff that I've been talking about lately, and I will continue to talk about because it seems to me that a lot of other people aren't talking about it, is that the best recipe for being here right now on the planet for any kind of positive and real change. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot going on out there. You can, certainly sample a lot of YouTube channels. There's a ton of information and a ton of people delivering the information. And some of it will be good. Some of it will stick with you. And some of it you really need to be very, very, very wary of. And that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you how to believe or what to believe in. I do have my opinions, and you'll hear about them. You can sort them out and say, well, I don't agree with you there. And that's fine. This is what adults do. I say, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you. Well, if you don't agree with me, guess what? We don't have a level of consent here. You don't agree, but I do agree with this. Okay, we can agree on that. But my drum that I'm beating now is, what can you do? What can you do? How are you making your life better? How are you making other people's lives better? How are you honoring your spirit? I had a conversation last night with a good friend of mine, and he's such a character, this guy. And I'm going to bring him onto the show in the next couple of weeks. I want to try to get him on a semi-regular basis, because he's one of these guys that you'll never, ever, ever read about. He doesn't have a blog. He doesn't do YouTube. But I'll tell you what he does is he works on himself like a maniac. This guy meditates for 2 hours a day. He's involved in intense writing. He's one of the sharpest people you'll run across in terms of alternative health and just personal wisdom. This guy he's not lived a sheltered life. And I'll bring him on in a couple of weeks. His name is Bhakta. And I was talking with Bhakta yesterday. We're catching up. And he was telling me, and Bhakta, he's 12 years older than me. So let's see, he's 69 years old. And every single day is a spiritual practice for this dude. And when I bring him on, we'll get into it. He'll break down his daily routine. So one of the things that he's doing in his life, and not just working on himself, but he's actually helping people along the way. He's helping this 70-plus woman, like 78-year-old woman, who's confined to a wheelchair. He's helping her move and get out of a really bad situation, really bad living situation. And he's taking that upon himself. And this is not a guy that has a ton of money. He's not wealthy in the material sense, but in the spiritual sense, he's incredibly wealthy. So I'm going to bring him on, and at some point we're just going to talk, and I want to tap into his brain and his mind share, so that you, as the listening audience and people out there, can get an idea and understand what you can do for yourself and how you can impact other people, because that's where it's at. That is totally where it's at. Just be careful out there. Be very careful. I've got a pretty good bullshit detector. I really do. I've been around for a while. You're dealing with a Scorpio rising. I've done thousands of astrological and tarot card readings, and I was a phone psychic. So my antenna is really, really pretty well refined and defined. So let's bring it back to Jordan Peterson. I brought that piece up yesterday because I thought to myself, well, that's really antithetical to Peterson's beliefs in some ways, right? And then you look at his resume and all the things that he's done, and then you realize he's a Gemini, and he's somebody that can switch sides or flip sides, and you begin to the big picture is that anybody's capable of anything. And again, in this moment of time that we're in right now, it's so easy to affix ourselves to some kind of celebrity or figure that for a brief instant gives us this galvanizing moment. And that interview on the BBC that Jordan Peterson did was a galvanizing moment. And if you could take anything away from Jordan Peterson and his career or his intellectual bank, it's that interview. To look at how to deal with somebody who is robotic. And she was. She was robotic. And he was able to deal with her in a way that was consistent, clear, concise, lucid, and tracking the conversation all the way. So that was something that was really cool, very galvanizing. But you also have to kind of just take it for what it is. It's like you had a good meal. You had a good meal at a restaurant. And not everything in the restaurant is always good. Keep that in mind too. Like we live at a time where people are really hungry for the truth. And we've got momentum now. I mean, you go on YouTube and it's like the Great Awakening. It is happening. It is on. Red pills, black pills, Nexium, the purple pill. So it's on, right? It is on. Here's the challenge. When people wake up, there's also a potential for a false awakening. Oh, I know. I'm raining on your parade. It's like, fuck you, Robert. Fuck you. I like you and on. No, there's potential for a false awakening. It's like, I mean, look, if I was running the show, if this was my show and my program, and well, for about 45, 50 minutes, it is my show and my program. But in the big sense, right, that was diabolical. Here, let me get into my diabolical mode. Oh, it looks like the natives are restless. It looks like they're waking up. Well, what should we do? Well, why don't we help them wake up? But what we're really going to do is we're going to give them a false awakening, and that way they will stay asleep, but they think they're awake. What an ingenious plan. Just be careful. Be careful. You know? And here's what happens, right? If you say to yourself or you say to another person, I'm not into this QAnon bullshit. And they are, holy shit, you are soon to be persona non grata. It's kind of like telling a Christian that, well, I'm not sure about this Jesus Christ thing. Depending on the Christian, you're not coming to dinner. You're not going to Christmas. Same kind of a deal. Just use all your faculties. And I think the litmus test, we were talking about this last night, was when you confront somebody and about like some information or you question it, the validity of it, and they turn on you really quickly and it becomes an us versus them experience, that is an orange flag. It's almost red. It's an orange flag. So just use your God-given ability to think through things, really think through things. And don't just give your will away because something feels good and you're able to share that feel good in a moment with another person or persons. And we all want that. We all want community, camaraderie. We want recognition because we haven't had it for such a long time. We've been so fragmented. This is getting into the notion of the organizing principle. And organizing principles are really important for large undertakings. If you do not have an organizing principle, something that people can rally around and gather around, what all you have is a fragmentary or fragmented group of individuals who cannot be summoned to do anything as it relates to contributing to the collective will. It just doesn't happen. And for the longest time, religion, particularly the Christian religion, was an organizing principle. That's what it was. You could rally around the Ten Commandments, other parts of the Bible, Sunday at church, maybe a few other activities where you reached out and helped the community. At night, you get together, you'd have a family prayer before dinner, you'd say your prayers before you go to bed. That is an organizing principle. And in all of the moral tenets that are embedded in that principle, what happened was that we lost that organizing principle. Whether you care for religion, especially Christianity or not, that got obliterated, blown up, taken apart, blown away. And that happened in the 1960s, and that was all part of a very strategic plan in order to do that and to replace that with a new belief system. And the new belief system was really the New Age, which, sprouted between 1965 and then the end of 68. So about 3 years, very concentrated, very focused, very strategic, very, very strategic. And all you have to do is go and check out Dave McGowan's TLC, the Laurel Canyon series. And then you'll find out how strategic it was. And there's more to it than just that, of course. Now, it lasted for about 3 years, and then they decided, well, that's a limited hang. We don't want to give people too much hope. We don't want them to really believe that they can change the world through things like love and sharing and all of those wonderfully benign concepts, altruistic concepts. So then, of course, there's Altamont. And then there's the Mansons. And then there's Jimmy and Janice and Jim and Brian, right? And all the deaths that basically happened within 1 year of one another. 69 to 70, 71 being the outlier. The apotheosis of the Summer of Love, of course, being Woodstock, which for all intents and purposes might have been another planned operation. But then you have the downside, you have the dark side, and the duality of that, which is Altamont and the Hells Angels and Sympathy for the Devil, right? I just love that duality. Speaking of duality, do you want to see a little duality magic that just happened, like in the last 48 hours? So, of course, we have the opening, the great opening of the embassy, the United States Embassy in Jerusalem. And what a great moment in time this is for the United States and Israel and all of you Christians that believe in the rapture and beyond. This wasn't just a historical moment. No. This was a sacred moment. A sacred moment. A defining moment. Where God, country, biblical prophecy, all coming together. Right at the new moon. And the Uranus conjunction with the new moon. You think somebody's paying attention to that? Of course they are. That was a sacred moment. Meanwhile, in the United States, sports gambling was made legal by the Supreme Court. What is gambling? Gambling is generally considered a lifestyle that could be considered degenerate filled with reprobates and lives that have been crushed by greed, avarice, vulnerability. It's the human story, human condition. That is a profane, potentially, exercise. Like, if you're a real Christian, are you digging on gambling being legalized? Well, let's see. We've got marijuana, weed, dope, bud, ganj. I never know what to call it these days. I'll call it something, and people will laugh. They'll snicker. So based on what you call it, it really determines how old you are. Like, if you say pot, you should just get in the fucking wheelchair, right? That's how that works. Anyway, we have that. That's becoming. I'm not a prude. I'm not into the commercialization of it. You want to grow some plants? Grow them. Grow them. I think if you can do that and manage your life, fine. Not a big fan of the industry, although there are people that are, and it's creating a lot of income for Colorado and Oregon. We have that, and the government's been fighting that, but maybe it looks like they're kind of changing their tune a little bit. Who knows? Jeff Sessions seems to be in the witness protection program right now, so we don't really know what he thinks anymore. And now we have gambling. Gambling's been legalized, so now we have bud, ganj legalized, gambling legalized. Well, what do you think is next? Oh, you know what's coming. You know it's coming, don't you? Yes, indeed. The next vice to be legalized is going to be prostitution. Get ready for it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's already legal in Nevada. Gambling was legal in Nevada. I think now ganj is legal in Nevada. Keep your eye on that. Not every state will legalize it, but I'm telling you, that is coming. Going to hit the trifecta. But looking at what happened on Monday, we have the great structure, the edifice, the United States Embassy, and the United States recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And then you have the gambling thing, the sacred, just on the surface, please, let's not get too deep. I don't have enough time. But on the surface, we have this theoretical sacred moment, and then we have this profane moment. Do you think that they're happening just kind of independently of one another, right? These two quarks kind of flashing independently of one another in the universe. Boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. No. Those things are triggered to go off at the same time because it's high magic. It represents a form of duality. Duality is the practice, the field of high magic on this planet, on this domain. This is how it works, right? Because the people that are engaged with it, right? It's like, okay, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And it's in their brain that they somehow reconcile these dualistic conditions, when in reality, none of it's dual. Yes, we live in a world that is dual. Yes, we have ciphers and symbols that can be interpreted sometimes in a dualistic process, and astrology is one of them. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, take that away, and we live in a non-dual universe. That everything is complete. Everything is complete. And that's the game that we're in. And we have to have our own relationship to the dualistic premise of this third dimensional matrix. And one of the, of course, magical keys to it is the Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, there's your dualism, there's a problem over here, here's a reaction over here, and then the solution, which is the arc that connects the dualistic principles, and the solution, of course, is the manifestation of man as God on earth, right? Okay, here we go. Now we got a law for this. We got a law for that. We got a law for this. We got a law for that. And in many cases, it's all built on a false premise anyway. Am I right? All you QAnon people out there, if you're still listening to me and you haven't given up on it, people that follow people like Jordan Sather or Corey Good or any of the other ringleaders out there, I think the best thing you can do to really, really get down and find out what the litmus and the legitimacy of it all is, inquire about 9/11. Inquire about 9/11. Ask these people if they're a part of your group or if you're connected to them and have some kind of, somewhat meaningful dialogue. Ask them about 9/11. Ask them how they feel about 9/11 and who is actually involved in 9/11 and see where that goes. All right, so we've got that, the Jordan Peterson thing. Jordan Peterson apparently was also perhaps covering up for people whose children might have actually been molested at daycare centers. And Peterson termed it a type of mania, paranoid mania that people were expressing and experiencing. What happens if Jordan Peterson begins to apply that kind of reasoning to people who are quote unquote conspiracy theorists or, the red pill community? I wonder what Jordan Peterson would have to say about the QAnon phenomenon. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Is Jordan Peterson perched so that he can at some point deliver a death blow and basically say that everybody that doesn't believe in kind of this model of reality are paranoid and hypomaniacal? I mean, we're kind of anointing him as like this high priest in his own way, right? I'm just saying. I am just saying. Leave no stone unturned. Am I paranoid for even mentioning that Jordan Peterson might view me as being paranoid? Oh my God. Oh man, we could play with that one for a while. Anyway, just following up on the Jordan Peterson stuff. The other thing I wanted to follow up on, 38 minutes into the show, is the whole circumcision thing, which I've been talking about. Wow. Did that touch a nerve with people? And I got a number of emails with people telling me that circumcision, that they'd wish they hadn't done it to their child. And I've been doing, I'm going to do more than a show on circumcision. I've got a plan for that. It's kind of a bigger arc, and it's going to have to do with writing. I got to get back into writing for my website, but I got so much going on with like clients and stuff, and sometimes it's really difficult to write. Get the time to do that. But the circumcision piece is pretty significant. A lot of emails and texts, around it. So. That's something I'm going to return to and bring some more content to the table with. Okay, so there are a couple things that I wanted to get into today, and maybe let's get into the vaccine piece. One of my favorite topics. Does QAnon ever talk about vaccines? Does he ever have any cryptic little messages? I should just set up a fake YouTube channel and just do like QAnon interpretations. Okay, here, this is what Q is saying. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. Now this, I believe, relates to a story by the Brothers Grimm. And in that story, there is a character named Rumpelstiltskin. I don't know. Is Rumpelstiltskin a Grimm's brother character? I don't know. I'm not sure. But okay, I'm going down the Q hole. Let me pull myself out. From John Rappaport, 2 huge vaccine scandals the press is ignoring. 2 huge vaccine scandals the press is ignoring. John Rappaport, this is fresh, right off of his nomorefakenews.com. Some lies are so big, many people can't accept the fact that they're lies. Their minds are boggled. No, they say that couldn't be, but yes, that could be and is. 2 giant vaccine scandals are in progress at the moment. The mainstream press is mentioning them here and there, but without any intent to raise alarms, dig in, investigate, and get down to the core of the problem. So I'll get to the core. The first scandal revolves around the flu vaccine for the current year. The CDC and other experts have admitted the vaccine has a very low effectiveness rate. Why is it a dud? Because the vaccine is produced using chicken eggs. And in that medium, the flu virus, which is intentionally placed in the egg, mutates. Therefore, it isn't the same virus which is causing the flu this year. Therefore, no protection against the flu. Fierce Pharma, which is a website, reports, based on data from Australia, hello Sally, which already has had its flu season, scientists warn that this season's flu shot might only be 10% effective. And the reason for such a low level of protection might lie in the method by which the majority of the flu vaccines are made, in eggs. 10% effectiveness. Now that's ridiculous. And it's assuming you accept the whole model of how vaccines work, that they actually do protect safely against disease, rather than at best repressing the visible symptoms of the disease. Amidst their spotty coverage of this scandal, here's what the press is failing to mention. The problem with the flu vaccine isn't just a 2017-2018 flaw. It would be the same problem ever since chicken eggs have been used to manufacture the vaccine. Are you ready? Healthline.com. The majority of flu vaccines run in chicken eggs, a method of vaccine development that's been used for 70 years. The same low effectiveness problem. 70 years, the same problem. That's a page 1 story with a giant headline. So you're buying, so think about all the vaccines that are produced. A lot of vaccines for the flu, right? Everywhere you go. Like I think you can get a flu shot at McDonald's now. If I'm not mistaken. You order the Happy Meal and they'll ask you, would you like a flu shot to go along with that? It's a lot of money. A lot. And it doesn't work. This is a page 1 story with a giant headline. That's the lead item on the night news. That's a pounding investigative series about the lunatic promotion of a massively ineffective but universally promoted vaccine going back decades and decades. But it isn't a giant headline. It isn't an investigation. It's a here today, gone tomorrow piece. That's all. The second scandal keeps unfolding in the Philippines, where drug giant Sanofi's Dengvaxia, given to prevent dengue fever, is facing enormous pushback from government officials who stopped the national vaccination campaign after thousands of children already received the shot. The issue? Safety. Again from Fierce Pharma. The Philippines stopped vaccination shortly after the company warned that Dengvaxia can cause more serious infections in those who previously hadn't had exposure to the virus. The country also kicked off a probe and plans legal action, according to Health Secretary Francisco Duque. Did you get that? The company Sanofi itself warned that the vaccine may not be safe. Again from Fierce Pharma, the Philippine Department of Health didn't heed warnings from an advisory group of doctors and pharmacologists who concluded early last year that the vaccine's safety and efficacy were unproven. My. But let's dig even deeper. Sanofi saying Sanofi is saying that the vaccine might be dangerous for those who have been exposed to the dengue virus before getting the shot. What on earth does that mean? It means a child who had naturally come in contact with the virus would have developed his own antibodies to it. And later, those antibodies would protect him against the dengue virus in the vaccine. Otherwise, the virus in the vaccine could give him a case of dengue or cause some other form of damage. This is saying if a child is already immune to dengue fever because his immune system has successfully dealt with the virus, then the vaccine won't damage him. And that is saying if the child has naturally developed an immunity to dengue, then the vaccine, which he doesn't need, won't harm him. Of course, the press isn't getting the picture. If any reporters are seeing the light, they're keeping their mouths shut. The scandal is too big and too crazy. Between the lines, vaccine companies admitting their vaccine is only safe for children who don't need it. Oh my God. Yeah. These are the headline items, right? You want to make a change in your world. And it's great. It's great to feel alive and feel awake, and you're on there, stride for stride with other people. You're marching down the path to awakening together. Tomorrow's a brighter day. We're all practicing the QAnon way. Right? It's okay. Get into that feeling. Let's do something with it, right? Take that feeling. What are the big ticket items? Vaccines, 5G, boom, right there. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, boom, right there. Land rights, boom, right there. Those are 4 things that you can focus on. 4 that'll make your life measurably different. How about GMOs? How about some fluoride in your water? Boom. You want to be really, really empowered. You want to be really different. If you want that, here's what you do. If you're drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Why don't you grab a group of your Kool-Aid drinkers and say, we're feeling good. We're going to do our part to make America great again. Let's go fucking take on this vaccine thing. Let's all get together. Let's all start, writing letters to the CDC. Let's be talking about this. Let's demand that we have some exposure and talk to the hospitals. And let's see if we can get some media time here, or 5G, same thing. Peel off. Take all this wonderful QAnon energy that you're feeling and go do something with it. Let's see that level of commitment and how you manage it. Let's see how many people are willing to get off their ass and their keyboard and say, okay, let's go do it. Thank you, QAnon. You've inspired us. We're going to go make some changes here locally. Now we're going to make our community great again. It's just a thought. You want to be on the cutting edge? That's the cutting edge. And guess what you're going to run into? You're going to run into slugs. You're going to run into sloths. You're going to run into the very same deep state that supposedly is being flushed out. You want to go to the deep state? You want to take a trip to the deep state? Go to your local planning commission meetings. Go visit your board of supervisors meetings. Look what's going on. There's your indoctrination to the deep state. You can fight the deep state just by doing that. It all starts right around you, believe it or not. Okay, so I wanted to talk about this before we get out of here today. And look, I could spend a lot of time on this next topic, and this is kind of the third rail deal. And it's something you're going to hear more and more and more about. If you are supposedly awake, and you are coming on line, right? One of the things you're going to hear about, if you're awake, is something called the Talpiot program. And if you haven't heard about Talpiot, I'm breaking it to you now. Okay, you're gonna want to look it up, understand it, and the Talpiot program originates out of the country that we venerate and share so much common alliance and allegiance with, so much that we actually opened our embassy in their new capital city. The Talpiot program started by the IDF and has connections to the Mossad. And basically, think of Men Who Stare at Goats and the super secret soldier program, right? The same version of that, but different, is the root and the foundation of Talpiot. And what happened is that at one point, people who were dealing with systems and the formation of systems and communication and intelligence in Israel visited Xerox in California, Palo Alto. They visited Xerox, and they saw not just the corporate culture, but they saw what the power of information could do. And at that point, they decided, we need to be a part of this. We need to get involved. And so they would hand pluck people to be a part of a new division that they would create that would be all about intelligence, information gathering, communications, which becomes the foundation for Talpiot. So they basically got like 20 eggheads. Really, really, really bright guys. Very few, manageable social skills. If you've ever been in a computer company, if you've ever been in a tech company, and you've hung out with engineers, you know what I'm talking about. When I was in tech, it was always interesting dealing with the engineers. First thing you do with an engineer is you, on a kind of, how do I say this, in an implied level, you just agree that they're God, right? You don't go in and push them around. You don't take this attitude like, well, you just think you're such a smart fucking engineer, right? You can't do that, right? You get more from an engineer with honey than you do vinegar. And that's what I did. And I got the engineers to do pretty much anything, not that I was totally manipulating the situation, but you're in a corporate environment, you got to get shit done. You got to know, who does those things, right? And you've got to be kind of cool to them. But you get to know them, and you're like, some of them are very interesting people, don't get me wrong. They have very interesting hobbies, and a lot, some of them are actual, Zimmergists, they're into beer, they make their own beer and stuff. They're eggheads. They like doing stuff like that. It's been a long time since I've been in that world, though, so I don't know what the current version of the current crop is. But let's just say they're different. Okay, so they got a lot of guys who were different, and they created this group. What is it? It's what is it, the AG200 group, or I think it's what is it? There's a group that I'll follow up on it tomorrow. But it's like a group. It's like a very high-powered concentrate. Now, out of this group, they're formally trained, right? Formally trained to perform a function. And that function is basically to hack the planet and to be engaged in every single bit of technological infrastructure, replete with kill switches at any given point in time. So as I am here talking to you, real-time streaming, there's a very good chance that all this data is being collected. So if you look at the NSA, and the NSA, of course, is the mothership of surveillance in this country. Well, the NSA has contracted out to companies that have come out of Talpiot. And one of those companies is Verint, which I've talked about on a number of occasions. So they're the spine. Right? They are the data spine for the NSA. And all the fusion centers that have been set up where massive amounts of information were compiled, tranched, people are profiled, all that stuff. That's courtesy of Verint. Let's see what we have here. What do we got? Or is this something I wanted to... So Talpiot was started 40 years ago. 40 years ago. So that's how far-reaching these programs are. They're generational. They're multi-generational. You know, they started this 40 years ago with the idea that 40 years later, they could control the flow of information across all platforms, all around the planet. Now, number one, that's audacious. Number two, that takes a lot of commitment and money. And number three, it's completely evil, totally evil. But you have to, in some ways, kind of respect that, right? You have to respect the vision and the dedication, right? So, I mean, and this is some of the things, this is kind of endemic of what we bounce up against in terms of these long-range plans, right? Like when they blew up 9/11, when they blew up the Twin Towers, do you think they decided like 6 months before that they were going to do that? No. No, they decided long before that. In fact, they probably decided it when they were building the damn things because of how they went down. So we're talking about a long-range plan and a lot of commitment to that long-range plan. And here's our challenge and our issue as, you know, isolated individuals. You know, we don't have long-range plans. You know, we get up in the morning like, what the fuck am I going to do today? What am I going to do next week? Oh, I'm going to go teach somewhere next month. Oh, I got to prepare around that. Like, and that there's something to be said for that. Being in the moment is very important, but also being able to scale out time-wise, you know, what you want to do. And we've totally lost that. You know, if I had my life to live over again, if you could have caught me when I was like 20, I remember when I was, I think I just turned 30. I was 31. And I went to go see this psychic in Washington. She was actually a really cool person. And she was the first person that turned me on to herbs to cleanse my body. And they were freaking amazing. I love these things. And she said, you have to start thinking about your legacy. And I didn't quite understand it at the time. You know, I didn't quite understand it. But looking back on it, I understand what she was saying now and I have understood it for quite a few years now. But at that time, I should have been really looking at my life like, who am I? What do I want to create? You know, what kind of children do I want to have? You know, what kind of lifestyle do I want to have? How do I want to raise these kids? You know, what kind of lessons do I want to impart? You know, building something up. That's what she was actually saying to me. And I couldn't listen to it. I couldn't hear it because I was too distracted by my libido for the most part. Amongst a few other things. And this is where we get fragmented and have been fragmented. Because we're dealing with entities. We're dealing with families, right? Families that are transgenerational, and they've been working on shit for a very long time. And these families work together, they don't work together, but by and large, they're assembled as part of this group. And their group that they've assembled is always about serving their interests and the interests of their family and their extended family, whether they're blood or whether they're bond or bound by some kind of dark agreement, compact, or contract. And where are we? Fragmented, broken, divorced. CPS coming in, hacking away at our relationships. And not just CPS, but the actual entity that can be used, targeted, triggered at any given time. Sometimes there's a reason for it and it can actually be helpful. Like if somebody's really, really, really a shit, then it would be helpful if CPS got in and cleaned up the situation. And I know there are people in CPS that are working, they believe in what they're doing. And look, I'm not going to completely blast the entire institution, but it's just another piece. It's another piece that has taken us potentially out of our ability to have a family, raise a family, and not just raise a family, but to create something that is transgenerational and builds from, one level of the family to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Until, somewhere down the line, you've got a family that is significant. It's all part of your lineage. It's all part of your bloodline. And it doesn't have anything to do with ego. Oh, look at me. I was a cotton candy baron. And this is my family. And they've made all kinds of wealth off of my cotton candy. And there are some people say, hey, look, after one generation, cut the wealth off and let the other kids do what they do. And I think that there's some truth to that too. But the understanding here is that there would be enough life lessons and enough gravitas and enough character and enough love and enough connection to spirit and all that stuff. So if you did cut them off, they could do the same thing all over again, right? That's how theoretically it would work in that model. But we've been exploded. We've been exploded. I'm going to get into this circumcision piece. People are sending me a lot of information. And one of the things and I think it's clear and true, that it is a trauma-based event that young men are indoctrinated into at a very early age. We are taking away a part of your manhood almost from the moment that you're awake. And I know this sounds really, really trite and cliche, but in that moment, guess what? You become less of a man because there's less of you there. Now, has that stopped people from achieving some level of greatness or mastery? Probably not. But what would happen if that didn't happen? What would happen if that didn't happen for 2 or 3 generations? What kind of men would we produce out of that? It's an interesting question. And I'll get into more of that. Look, I don't want to do a superficial kind of rendering of Talpiot. So I'm going to revisit this tomorrow, 48 hours, 24 hours from today. We'll get into more of this. We'll talk more about what's going on behind the scenes in terms of communication, information, and who profits from it. And trust me, these things are done not just because one country in the world wants to control all the information on the planet. There are people making lots of money off of this operation, whether it's the NSA through taxpayer dollars, or people like Verizon, or people like AT&T, or people like Intel. There are people that are making big money because of the infrastructure that's been set up. So we'll look at more of that over the course of the next couple of days. I think it's a worthwhile thing. And by the way, again, if you're like a QAnoner, if you are somebody who loves to watch Jordan Sather's videos, if you're in Jordan Sather's Facebook page, bring up Talpiot. Bring it up. Let's see what happens. Talk about it. See how comfortable or uncomfortable, maybe it's too uncomfortable and you just want to focus on the secret space program. Look, I think that there are alternative technologies and alternative energies that are way beyond what we have on the planet. And I've always, always held that to be true, and I still do to this day. And Do you think that the people who are in charge of those technologies are going to give them over anytime soon? Hell to the no. And what are you going to do about it? Well, are you going to open up your awareness and maybe change sort of the matrix paradigm? Possibly. That could happen. Or maybe you could go to a place like Lockheed or maybe a facility down in Las Cruces or Alamogordo and, go protest. Get your signs out there. Free energy. What do we want? Free energy. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Free energy. When do we want it? Now. There's another little QAnon, field trip that you can do. Maybe Jordan Sather can meet you down there. You can get out there with his sign. What do we want? Free energy. When do we want it? Now. I love Jordan Sather's latest video on authenticity. There are some moments in that video where I swear to God he's got the eyes of a killer. I'm sorry. I have to say it. And he does this weird thing where he bulges his eyes. It's like he bulges his eyes on these very specific moments. Like, what do you think of that? I'm sorry. I can't help myself. It's all about being authentic, though. This is the age of authenticity. The age of authenticity. I've often thought about what that means. And I do believe that being authentic is a really, really important piece of being here on this planet. But one person's authentic is not always another person's authentic. What if you are, a transgender, hybrid unicorn clown that likes to abduct kids and do things to them that are dark and despicable. What if you're that? And then it's like, well, I'm being authentic. This is really who I am. I'm a unicorn clown. And I used to be a man, but now I'm a woman unicorn clown. And when I do these things to these kids, I'm just being authentic. That's all I'm being. I'm just expressing my authentic self. Do you have a problem with my authentic self? Well, maybe you should get in touch with your authentic self. And then your authentic self and my authentic self can sit down and we can have a little conversation. I think being authentic is okay, right? It's important. There's a pattern. There's a pattern inside of us, and it's a divine pattern. It is a divine blueprint. But I think we get into a fuzzy area when we talk about authenticity. God, sometimes I just feel like I'm like the Debbie Downer at the party, aren't I? Get off my lawn! I'm rooting for humanity. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for us. Because it's getting very clear as the seams start to kind of break apart that this place, for the most part, in terms of the programs that have been run, is a complete shithole. In terms of the programs, clearly there's some beauty. Clearly there's some wonderful hearts that somehow manage to maintain their integrity throughout everything that happens. And you'll see these stories and they're really inspiring. The people have gone through tragedy and still maintain a level of dignity and care, whether it's through their physical body or life circumstance. This is where humanity always blows me away. To go through something like what we're going through, and to still be functional and more than functional, get to another level beyond it. So we're waking up and we're looking around. Just be careful, because I believe that we are on the precipice of a false awakening. Just put that in your pocket. Sit with it. Just sit with it. And find the truth and love in your heart. Okay, I'm out of here for today. I'll be back 24 hours from today. And you can find me over on robertphoenix.com, where I do my work with readings and working with people. There's no messages in the chat today. I wonder why. Very interesting. It certainly looks like I've got audio. Very interesting. A lot to chew on. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day. Have a really great day. Separate yourself out from some of your beliefs at times and just look at who you are and kind of hold that up to a mirror and let that be your guide for a brief period of time. All right, we're going to skip the time tunnel today because I got to get to work with other parts of my life. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert.
You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame with Robert Phoenix.